Hello, team players. So, for today's teamwork build, we're going to be building an Umbral Gnome Oracle. First, Dark Vision's pretty nice. And secondly, my 7 Dooms for Sandpoint party needs a healer and someone who's good at recall knowledge. And a certain Oracle mystery will let us do both of those very well. So without further ado, here is the Seer of Lore. Let's dive in. So I go into a lot more detail on the lore mystery in my Oracle mystery video, but that's the mystery we're going to be taking for this build. Essentially, we get an extra spell of every rank we can cast, but we take a -4 status penalty to our initiative in our minor curse. In our major curse, we are always off guard, but we can make recall knowledge checks as free actions, which is amazing. And with our major curse, we understand all languages and get a +4 bonus on all saving throws against linguistic effects, but we can't talk. I know you guys probably saw this mystery coming when you clicked on this video, but this is one of the best ones, by far. Moving on, the background today is Cathedral Child. With this background, this character has essentially grown up in the shadow of the Sandpoint Cathedral. But if you worship a deity, it really doesn't matter which one, as long as it's a non-evil one. But our ability boosts are Wisdom or Charisma, plus a free boost, obviously, because background, and training in Religion and Scribing Lore. We also get Battle Medicine as a skill feat from our background. And of course, this will increase the party's reputation with the Sandpoint Cathedral by 1, and reduce it by 1 with the Scarnetti Consortium. For your stats, obviously you want your Charisma to be as high as possible. That's our spellcasting stat, after all. After that, you're going to want to focus on your Dexterity for your defense. After that, you're definitely going to want to put points into your Intelligence and your Wisdom, as we do want to be good at recall knowledge in this build. This build is a spellcaster, so no class feat at level 1. However, we do get an ancestry feat. And we're a gnome, so we're going to go with First World Magic. I'll get into free Archetype a little later in this video, but if you don't have it, then it's going to be difficult for this build to attack. So we want to pick an attack primal cantrip here. If you do have free Archetype, well, I'll get into that when I get there. But something like Produce Flame would be great here. Okay, for our level 2 class feat, we're going to take Domain Acumen. We're going to want the Knowledge Domain here, particularly the Scholarly Recollection focus spell. This will allow us to roll recall knowledge checks twice and take the better results, as long as we're willing to advance our curse and spend a focus point. Don't worry, I am going to go over why we're taking all these feats in the teamwork reports of this video. For level 3, we get our general feats, and of course, we're going to want to take the standard Die Hard at Toughness and Canny Acumen. However, for this build, we are going to be taking Canny Acumen for Perception. You probably figured out why already, but we'll get to it. We're also going to need Incredible Initiative, and since we're so good at Perception, we might as well take Incredible Scout, allowing us to give our allies more of a bonus to their initiative when we scout ahead. Alright, for level 4, we're going to be taking Vision of Weakness. This revelation spell allows us to automatically learn any weaknesses that the enemy has, if they have any, and which of their saving throws is the lowest. It also allows us to gain a +2 bonus on our next attack roll or a skill check as part of an attack action against that creature. In these teamwork reports from now on, I'm going to try my best to explain why I'm taking the options that I'm taking. So for today's first teamwork reports, let's start with the lore mystery. I do need to talk about the first revelation spell we get first, though. With Brain Drain, we can do mental damage to a target and then use their recall knowledge skill to make a recall knowledge check. Unfortunately, since Wisdom and Intelligence are going to be our third most important stats here, that means our recall knowledge checks aren't going to be great in the beginning. But if we use Brain Drain on the right enemy, we can get their modifier rather than our own. Plus, we can use the recall knowledge check as part of this spell. As we get higher level, our modifier is probably going to be higher, so we're going to use this less and less. But in the beginning, it's going to be very good. And I did already kind of explain why we're taking this mystery. We need to be a healer and a recall knowledge person, and this is the best mystery to do that with. As for our Umbral Gnome ancestry and heritage, we need first world magic so we can attack. Sometimes it is good to attack enemies, especially when we know their weaknesses. And damage is important, it just can't be everything. As for our Cathedral Child background, it gives us the stats we need, and it fits this build. Also, having Battle Medicine right off the bat is huge for any healer. Now, let's talk about feats. First, let's talk about Domain Acumen and our Scholarly Revelation spell. Rolling twice and getting the better result on a recall knowledge check is huge. True, if we're underneath our moderate curse, we're not rolling, so we can't use that on this. At least not if we use the free action version of our recall knowledge check. But, number one, we're not always going to be in our moderate curse. Number two, even if we are, and we get assurance on all our recall knowledge checks we use as free actions, that might not always be enough. Sometimes, even if we're underneath our moderate curse, we're still going to want to spend the action to do a recall knowledge. As maybe we've run into this monster before, but we failed on the recall knowledge check then because we used assurance on it. And rolling twice and taking the better result is hugely going to help that. As for our general feats, Die Hard and Toughness are pretty obvious. We're taking those because of our toughness. Being tougher helps any character. As for Canny Acumen for our Perception and Incredible Initiative, that -4 to Initiative from our Minor Curse hurts a lot. And while we can't directly mitigate that, we can increase our initiative. We are going to take that -4 if we're in our Minor Curse. However, when we're not in our Minor Curse, then going first is going to be a huge boon. And even if we are in our Minor Curse, those two will give us as much of initiative as a normal Oracle without this mystery would, even with the -4. And as for Incredible Scout, if you're playing this in the actual module, you won't be able to take this. You won't be a master in Perception until level 17, if you take this build that far. But once we get to that point, then we can give our allies more of an initiative bonus if we scout ahead, and we might be good at stealth at that point, since Dex is one of our main ones we want to focus on. As for Vision of Weakness, even with rolling twice and take the better results, and even with assurance on free action recall knowledge checks, sometimes we're going to fail on those recall knowledge checks. It's just a natural part of the game. So this is our last resort. If we don't know about a creature, even after all that, we can automatically know its weaknesses and its lowest saving throw with this. We're not going to be making strikes or skill actions with the attack trait in this build because we don't want to be in melee. So that last part does not matter. Hopefully, that's a good enough explanation as to why I'm taking what I'm taking here. But if not, let me know in the comment section below. For level 5, we're going to be taking Gnome Obsession for another lore skill. Remember that the new version of this feat also gives us assurance in that lore skill. Then we'll want to pick up Advanced Revelation for the Access Lore Revelation spell, allowing us to have the same proficiency in any lore skill that we want as we do in our Oracle spellcasting, which does of course go up to Legendary, eventually. Then Glean Lore will allow us to use Religion on basically any recall knowledge check. This also gives us more pieces of information than we would normally get with recall knowledge. For our level 9 Ancestry feat, we're going to take First World Adepts. This gives us invisibility and Revealing Light as second rank primal innate spell. We can cast each once a day. And lastly, for feats, we'll take Ocular Warning. As a free action, when we roll initiative, we can allow one ally to roll twice and take the better results on their initiative. If we're legendary in religion, we can give 2 allies this benefit. However, this means we must roll twice and take the lower results for our initiative. And these two effects are tied together. If one doesn't happen, the other does not happen. Okay, before I talk about my reasoning behind those feats, I should talk about free archetype a little bit here. If you've got free archetype, there are a few options you could take. I would recommend an archetype that lets you create potions, or at least alchemical items. Alchemist, witch, herbalist, you name it. We are going to have high intelligence in this build eventually, so crafting is something that this build can 100% do. But potions specifically, and not alchemical items, are what's going to help this build the most, and this party. My next teamwork build for this party means that characters like this and our kineticists are going to take huge advantage of shrinking potions. So you guys can look forward to that. But if you're playing this build not in this party, or a similar party, then what potions or alchemical items are going to be effective are going to depend on the rest of your party. Plus, being able to create healing potions and elixirs of life is just another way that this build can help the party heal. Overall, I chose Witch because then we have access to the Shrink spell, so we don't have to rely on shrinking potions if we run out of them. But if you do choose Witch, it doesn't really matter what patron you pick. For those of you that do get the Google Sheets for these builds, I did pick a Primal Witch patron for this build. And one of the higher level feats that I didn't cover in this video reflects that. But if you choose a different patron, you can choose a different feat at that point. Overall, just pick a patron that's going to help the party. That's the main thing. All witch patrons are good in some situation. If you choose something like Alchemist, healing and support items are an excellent choice for this build, as those just give you more options to help the team. Bombs are also an effective choice, because you will know about enemy weaknesses with this build. Mutagens aren't a great option because this build does not want to be in melee combat. Poisons aren't a great option for this build either, because most of them require fortitude saving throws, and a lot of enemies have high fortitude saves. And you won't get a research field with the Alchemist dedication, so you won't get class DC on your poisons, which is a big deal. For Teamwork Report number 2, let's talk about Gnome Obsession. Yes, we are about to get a revelation spell that lets us be at least trained in any lore skill. But the thing is, if we use that, that advances our curse. So we need an option that lets us do a recall knowledge check without advancing our curse. And that's what Gnome Obsession gives us. And it gives us assurance on that as well. When you do pick up Gnome Obsession, you'll want to be careful about which lore skill you pick for that. Yes, we can change the lore skill by spending a day of downtime. However, you're not always going to have that day of downtime. So yes, try to pick a lore skill for Gnome Obsession that you're going to use a lot. Remember, we get assurance in it even if we're not in our moderate curse. And of course, with our Access Lore Revelation spell, we can be just as good with any lore skill as we are with our Oracle spellcasting. So if we really need to do a lore check on something other than what we have for our Gnome Obsession at the moment, we'll want to use this. And remember that if we're using a lore skill, that means the GM is more than likely going to give us a lower DC, which is going to help a lot. With Glean Lore, we can use Religion to basically make a recall knowledge check about any subject. Remember that including the lore skill that we choose for our Access Lore, we can only be legendary in 4 skills. At one time, anyway. That effectively means that we got our Access Lore skill and probably Religion as our legendaries in Recall Knowledge skills anyway. Eventually. That means using Religion for any Recall Knowledge check on a creature is going to be huge. Especially if you don't have the appropriate lore skill for whatever creature we're facing. The reason for First World Adept is mainly for revealing lights, as some creatures will try to hide from you. This is a way to reveal them so that you can use your recall knowledge on them. And invisibility can be useful if you're low on health and need to heal. And lastly, for Ocular Warning, sometimes it is going to be beneficial for another party member to go before you, especially if it means that they can go before the enemy. It really depends on what you're facing. Like, let's say our tank Thaumaturge needs to go first so he can get between you and the enemy. This will help him do that. And rolling twice and taking the lower result on your initiative isn't the end of the world. And who knows, you might get lucky and roll high both times. And yes, I am aware that in this party we have a thaumaturge that's going to gain a lot of the information that we can get with this build with exploit vulnerability. However, where the thaumaturge might not be as good as you is outside of combat, as his esoteric lore only applies to creatures, whereas we can be trained in any lore skill on any subjects, making this a great out-of-combat character. Again, guys, let me know how I did explaining my feat choices in these teamwork reports in the comments below. And remember, guys, you can get my videos a day early if you become a member of this channel or become a team leader or higher on my Patreon. Patreon members also get Google Sheets for this build and a whole bunch of other builds. And the Google Sheets go all the way to level 20. So if you're interested in that, join up, like these guys here. If you want to learn more about Oracle Mysteries, you can check out this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, teamwork is vital. It helps to solve problems.